Have you ever whispered this thing to yourself? I can't speak English. I'm just not built for languages. Or, I'm too old to learn now. And now and then, you see young people on Facebook or TikTok speaking English so fluently that you quietly wonder if you've missed your chance. There were nights when you sat in front of your laptop, staring at an email from a foreign client, wishing you could just disappear. And you thought to yourself, I need better English to build a better future, but why does it feel so impossible? Maybe some of you are thinking right now, come on, Lisa, are you going to give me another toxic positivity speech? Look, I'm 36 now. I'm working a 9-to-6 job and drowning in KPIs. When do I even have time to study? I've tried English centers and language apps, but nothing seems better. By the time I get home, my brain feels like mush. I can barely decide what to eat for dinner. How am I supposed to memorize irregular verbs? In your 20s and 30s, life can feel a little overwhelming or difficult sometimes. You come home after a long and exhausting day at work. Your mind feels tired, and you don't really have the energy to do much of anything. Then, almost without thinking, you reach for your phone, go to social media, and suddenly, it feels like everyone else is moving faster than you are. Someone younger is speaking English confidently. Someone else just landed their dream job at an international company. Another friend is moving abroad. And quietly, almost without noticing, you begin asking yourself questions that hurt. Why am I so far behind? Why is this so easy for everyone else but not me? Maybe I'm simply not good at languages. The hardest part isn't failing an English test. It's believing that you'll never be good at it. Maybe you've stopped applying for jobs that require English. Maybe you've stopped speaking up in meetings because you're afraid of making mistakes. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you've already missed your chance. Honestly, that feeling can be incredibly lonely sometimes. If that sounds like you, I want you to know something that I've learned for myself 2 years ago. More adults carry this quiet frustration than you might imagine. And before you decide that English simply isn't for you, let me ask you one question. Why do some people keep trying after failing again and again, while others quietly give up? The difference may not be talent. It may not even be time. And it might be something much smaller than you think. Please don't close this podcast just yet. I'm not here to tell you to study harder or sleep less. I'm here to share a tiny psychological shift that may completely change the way you talk to yourself when learning something difficult. And surprisingly, it begins with just one single word. By the way, I'm Lisa, and welcome to English Flip. This is the place where you learn English naturally through meaningful ideas that make life feel just a little bit easier. Stay with me till the end of this episode. You won't just learn a few new expressions. You'll walk away with a simple mental tool you can use whenever life is hard and you want to say, I can't. So, grab a cup of coffee or tea, sit back, and let's discover why one tiny word has the power to turn I can't into something so possible. The word yet. Where you are today is only where you are today. It isn't where you'll always be. Before we go any further, I want to tell you something fascinating about our brains. Every time you say, I can't do this, something interesting happens with your brain. Your brain doesn't argue with you. It simply listens and believes it. Our brains are remarkably obedient. They are constantly learning from the stories we tell ourselves every single day. So when you repeatedly say something like, I just can't, I'm terrible at English, I'm too old, it'll never sound natural, your brain quietly begins treating those sentences like facts. And after a while, it stops looking for possibilities because you've already given it the answer, I can't. That phrase isn't just a thought, it's a conclusion. And it's far more dangerous than we think. Because once we've decided something is impossible, we stop looking for what's possible. When an English podcast appears on our feed, our brain whispers, this isn't for people like us. When an opportunity comes along, it whispers, "Don't embarrass yourself." And before we've even taken the first step, we've already decided where the story ends. But here's the wonderful news. A famous researcher, Professor Carol Dweck, discovered that our brains aren't solid rocks. They can change, learn, and grow at any age. And she found a beautifully simple way to help us do that. Instead of saying, "I can't speak English," just add one small word at the end. I can't speak English yet. That tiny word changes everything. When you say, "I can't speak English," the story ends there. But when you say, "I can't speak English yet," the story is still being written. Not today, perhaps, but maybe tomorrow, maybe next month, or maybe after 100 small attempts that nobody else ever sees. The word "yet" doesn't promise instant success. It simply leaves the door open. Every time you learn a new phrase, every time you make a pronunciation mistake and try again, every time you listen but don't understand everything, your brain is still changing little by little. And forgetting something you learned yesterday is completely normal. You're making more progress than you realize. Some of you now may want to say, "Wait a minute, Lisa, can one tiny word really make that much difference?" It can't magically teach you grammar overnight or suddenly make your pronunciation sound like a native speaker. So what makes it so powerful? The answer is surprisingly simple. I can't do it. You feel like you're standing in front of a locked door. There's nowhere else to go. But when you say, "I can't do it yet," you're telling yourself, "I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still becoming the person I want to be. I'm not there yet, but I will be someday." And there's something incredibly gentle about that. Because adulthood is hard enough already, you don't need another voice telling you that you're failing. You need a voice that reminds you that you're just unfinished. Think about a road sign for a moment. If it says, "Road closed," I'm sure we'll stop and turn around, and the journey ends there. But if the sign says, "Under construction," we don't feel defeated completely, but we understand that we'll need a little more patience, or perhaps there's a different path to get there. Our destination is still waiting for us. That's exactly what the word "yet" does for our mind. It replaces hopelessness with possibility. And here's something beautiful that I've learned about growth. Most meaningful things in our lives happen quietly. Nobody applauds us when we listen to an English podcast after a tiring day at work. Nobody celebrates when we learn 3 new words before going to bed. Nobody notices when we choose to try one more time after making a mistake. But our brains notice. Our future selves notice. And one day, all of those quiet moments become something extraordinary. So please don't underestimate little progress, because it's becoming a big change. Let me give you 2 simple examples. Imagine a 32-year-old woman sitting quietly at her office desk during lunch break. She's dreamed of working for an international company for years, but she's never dared to apply. Every time she sees these words, "excellent English communication skills required," she quietly closes the tab and tells herself, "I'm not qualified for that job." One day, she decides not to change her entire life, but changes only one sentence. Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough for this job," she says, "I'm not ready for it yet." And she spends 15 minutes every day improving one small skill. Today, she learns 3 new English words. Tomorrow, she listens to a 5-minute podcast. Next week, she practices introducing herself in English while driving home from work. Nothing huge happens. But 6 months later, she's no longer the same person she was. Not because she became extraordinary overnight, but because she kept showing up, one small step at a time. Let me tell you another story. Imagine you're listening to English Flip while washing the dishes after dinner. You understand about 60% of what I'm saying today. The other 40% feels like a complete mystery. And somewhere in your mind, a familiar voice begins to whisper, This podcast is too difficult for me. I'm terrible at listening. I'll never speak naturally. But today, let's add one more word to those sentences. I don't understand everything, yet. I can't speak naturally, yet. But I'm progressing. Did you see the difference? Nothing about your English has changed in the last 10 seconds. But something about your future has changed. Because when you say yet, you permit yourself to continue. You don't need to become fluent this month. You only need to become slightly better than you were yesterday. One new word, one difficult conversation, just a little progress at a time. That's how big change usually happens. And you know what? Right here, right now, let's make that first small progress together. Let's look at 5 beautiful English expressions that directly connect to our message today. By understanding them, you're already changing your brain, little by little. Our first expression is limiting beliefs. Sometimes, we tell ourselves things like, I'm too old, I'm not good at languages, success isn't for people like me, I'll probably fail anyway. We say them so often that we begin to believe they're true. And those are called limiting beliefs. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I can't, I hope you'll pause for just a moment and ask, is this really true? Or is it one of my limiting beliefs? And change it into, I can't do it yet. Let's look at our second expression, figure something out. It simply means finding a way to solve a problem or understand something, even if you don't have all the answers right now. I think many adults secretly believe they must know exactly what to do before they begin. But life doesn't usually work that way. And honestly, I don't always have everything figured out either. Most of us are simply figuring things out as we go. Sometimes, the next small step is all we need to know. Another useful expression is, I completely relate to that. Native speakers use this expression to show deep understanding and empathy. For example, if someone says, I'm trying so hard, but I still feel stuck, you can gently reply, I completely relate to that. Repeat it with me, slowly. I completely relate to that. And actually, that's something I'd love to say to many of you listening today. If you've ever felt left behind or wondered whether you're too late, I completely relate to that. And our fourth expression is self-doubt. Self-doubt is the feeling that you're not really good enough, even when you're doing much better than you think. Like you might have said to yourself, my English isn't that good. But actually, other people understand you perfectly well. Sometimes, we're much kinder to strangers than to ourselves. So please don't let self-doubt speak louder than your progress. And finally, let's look at one last expression today. Step out of your comfort zone. It means trying something new, even when it feels a little difficult or uncomfortable. Maybe it's starting something you've been delaying for a long time. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Or maybe it's simply trying one more time when you'd rather give up. Because beautiful things are rarely built all at once. They are built little by little. Before we say goodbye today, I want you to look at yourself not as a closed road, but as a beautiful path that is simply under construction. Every 5 minutes you spend listening to this podcast, every new expression you learn before bed, or every time you choose to try again after making a mistake, is a small brick you are laying down. No one else might see it yet, but your future self will thank you for it. Both are evidence that something great is still being built. The next time life tempts you to say, I can't, I hope you'll add one more word, yet. Because sometimes, not yet is all we need to keep going. Thank you for spending these moments with me today. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What is one thing in your life that you can't do yet? Whatever it is, I hope you'll permit yourself to keep trying. Until one day, not yet quietly becomes, I did. And I'm Lisa. This is English Flip. Better English, better life. I'll see you in the next episode.